Hi everybody, and welcome to part two of Welcome Spring, the Welcome Spring bench pillow. And this will be our quilting portion. So I have we pieced this in the first section or the first video, and then we also marked all of the markings for the embroidery, which we'll do in the third video. But now we need to quilt this. So I'm going to quilt this with my clear blue tiles. I have prepared got my tile here and I'll show you that in a second, but I have prepared my top and my batting. I like to use Hobbs 80/20, like the polyester blend batting, cotton polyester blend batting 80/20. And then I've just got a piece of this is just Waverly cream colored 100% cotton on the back. If you're going to be using it as a table topper, you probably would want to put like your pretty matching fabric on the back, whatever works for you. But I'm just going to make this into a pillow. So I've just got my plain old, kind of muslin looking fabric on the back. Okay, and then I have pin basted, so you can see my safety pins in here, and I've layered it all together. Now I told you I was going to tell you how big I made my backing and my batting, and I made it 24. Technically 6 inches would have been 23, but I made it 24 by the width of the fabric. So then that gives me about 3 inches on each end, because I think it's like 30, it's either 37 or 38 inches long. So I made my piece of fabric and my batting 24 by, well, basically 45. Okay. So that's what I've done here. And then the one trick that I've learned with the clear blue tiles, I love the clear blue tiles, and we're going to do like an overall pattern, like an edge to edge pattern. And the one thing I've learned with the clear blue tiles is that, in the instructions, it tells you to like tape your sides down, so that, when you get ready to sew off the edge, which you most likely will have to, it won't catch. Well, it catches the foot on our machine. So I've learned that with the smaller pieces like this, what I do, and I don't know if you can quite see it, but I go around the whole edge and I just zigzag the edge down to, so that all 3 layers are joined together. I don't have to worry now. I can just let it sew, and I can turn my head and not have to worry about it catching. I've tried glue, I've tried tape, nothing worked for me, but the zigzagging does. If you're doing a smaller piece like this, that it is fine just to zigzag around it. After you've pin basted it, I just zigzag around the whole outside edge. Now, if you're going to be doing a larger quilt like this, I would say you may have to kind of do the zigzagging as you're going, because it's going to be a larger area. You're going to start kind of in the center and work out. So you may have to zigzag the edges as you're working with it so that you don't have a pucker when you get to the edge. But this is small enough that I don't have any problems with that. So most of my table toppers and like these bench pillows, I just do the zigzagging all the way around the edge after I pin it. I always pin it first so that it's nice and held down. And then I zigzag around the edge with about 3.5 millimeter width, and it's about 1.4. I think that's the default setting on most of the Brother Baby Lock machines. So that seems to work really well for me. So I have my sandwiching done. I have my pin basting done. And we need to then take our clear blue tile. So what I kind of did is I did a little bit of math in my head, and this pillow is 17 inches. So we're gonna quilt it the long way. So here's here's the 17-inch width here, and then it's 38 this way. So we're going to do the quilting from the end, one end. So just pick an end, and I just made a little arrow pointing up. Okay. Now, since we have our embroidery marks marked in red, I'm going to mark my quilting marks in blue so that I know which ones are which. Okay. And by doing this, I don't have to hoop it a lot of times. I am going to use a 9.5 by 14 hoop. That is not the size of the that is not the size of the template that I'm going to use though, because the design, if I do a 9.5 by 14, the design is not 9.5 inches wide. So it's actually not wide enough to only do 2 rows. So when I did a little math, the template that came out the most even and having the least hoopings, because 9.5 and 9.5 is 18. It might be wide enough to do a 9.5, but when I looked at the designs, they're not 9.5 inches wide. They're only about 8 inches wide. So that's how I came up with this. So the biggest designs are only about 8-inch wide designs, and they're about 14 inches long. So I'd still have to hoop 3 times across. But what I learned, when I'm doing the math, this is 17, and what I like them to be as even as possible. And so if I used an 8 by 8, I'd do 2 full hoopings, and then I'd have just like a little skinny one on the side. So what I ended up doing is using a 6 by 14. So the 6 by 14 will give me the least amount of hoopings. I still have to hoop it 1, 2, 3 across, but I only have to do it 1, 2, 3 down. So I'll have to hoop this 9 times. Okay. If you don't have this big a hoop, if you have a 6 by 10, just use your 6 by 10, and you're going to have to hoop it 12 times because you're going to have to hoop 4 times down. Okay. So what I do is I just kind of decide which template is going to work out fairly evenly and give me the least amount of hoopings that I can do. So in this case, it happened to be the 6 by 14. So I picked the 6 by 14 finished block clear blue tile. Okay. So the first thing we have to do is mark this. And so we're going to mark starting at the top, and I'm going to probably just kind of start right at the top. I might go a little bit over the top just because I want the design to go up under the binding. So I might just give it just a little bit over the top. So I'm kind of looking at these little lines here, and I'm lining these up with the top of my fabric just to make sure that the quilting goes in to, up into the batting, just a hair maybe. And I also marked the center. I don't know if you can see this. I marked the center of this short side. So I'm going to start in the center, and these grids are neat because they give me a line right here. This is the center line. And I'm going to put that, I'm going to use these lines up here just to help me to go up just a little bit. And I'm going to put my center line right on that line that I made. So it's probably going to be, about 1/4 of an inch or so above the top, just to get me up there. And I'm just checking to make sure I've got that in the center. Okay, so we're going to be marking 3 rows across. So I kind of do this, I don't have a real plan when I'm doing this. I just kind of figure out what might work for me and kind of the template that would give me the least hooping. So in this case, the other thing I like to do is they have like all these huge big marks and all these things you're supposed to put the size in and all this stuff. And I like to hoop or to mark this as minimally as possible because I'm actually going to use my snowman for this. If you're using your, like if you have a smaller machine and you're using the grids, make sure you make your lines in the center long enough to give you something to hoop to. Okay, I'm going to use my snowman. A lot of you have snowmen. We've had a snowman in the machine since the Quattros, so a lot of you have snowmen in your machine, and that's how I'm going to do the quilting with this. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is mark. So I'm kind of getting everything kind of centered here, get it lined up, and then what I do for marking, let me see if I can bring this down just a little bit. Okay, there's a little polka dot for the center. I like to mark the center. Okay, and then I just like to go up a little ways, just enough that my snowman will work on there. In a second, I've got a pin under here, so this one's not going to work very well, but I'll just mark it over there over on the other side of the pin, and then down. Okay, now we do need some of these marks here and here, and then down at the bottom, just to give us something to mark it with. for the next row. So I'm going to mark these center ones on this side, and then there's a center one on this side. And then I'm going to mark the center one. Let me pull this back so you can see. I'm going to mark the center one at the bottom here. Okay. I don't usually do the edges. I usually just do the centers. That seems to work pretty well for me. And then I'm just going to do the center mark in the center. And I didn't do the whole thing. You notice that I just kind of stayed in the middle, big enough for my snowman to fit on there, okay? Or if you're using your grid so that you can have a good line to work with for your grid. Okay, so there's the first one. So then I'm going to go over to the right here, and we're going to do the same thing. So I'm going to mark, I'm going to line up this side piece that I just did, line up my center or my lines at the top up here along the edge. Okay, make sure I'm kind of straight here, and you can tell if you're straight because there's grid lines on these clear blue tiles. And I'm just going to mark this one. Okay, mark the center. And again, I'm doing these in blue because they're not the same color then as my embroidery marks. And then I'm going to go down here at the bottom and I'm going to mark this one in the center. Okay. All right. So then there's two that are marked, and then we're going to go this way. And then again, I'm going to line this up here where that center mark was. And I'm going to line this up the top. Make sure everything looks pretty straight. Let's see, I think I'm a little crooked here. And then I'm going to mark the center again. So this is on the left side of the top. So, and mark my center, little center polka dot, okay, like that. So there's my first row, 3 across, okay. So whoops, except and I forgot to mark the bottom one here. So just a minute here. I always don't forget to mark this bottom one here because it helps you get it lined up for the next row. Okay, so I got to mark this one. All right, so I got this one down here marked. Okay. All right, so now we're going to pull this up. We're going to start the next row. I usually like to start in the center and work my way out. But we got our little marks here to help us know where to go. So this is going to be my center mark. Okay, I'm going to try to keep this as straight as I can. And you can kind of tell too if you're straight by some of the red marks that we made for our embroidery. So then you can kind of tell if you're straight. So I'm going to go ahead and mark my center. Second, I got a pin in here again. I'll fold it over, see if it'll let me mark over here. Okay, mark my center. Okay, and then I'm going to mark my sides over here. So I'm going to mark the sides. And then I'm going to go down here at the bottom. Move the camera down a little bit. And then I'm going to mark down here. Okay, like that to help us do the next two. So then I'm going to go over here, mark, and this is my center mark that I did for this one. I'm going to line this one up at the top. So up here, I'm going to line it up, and I'm going to line it up on the side. And again, you can kind of tell if you're straight by looking at the grids on the edge of your fabric over here, and that looks pretty good. Just kind of making sure I have it straight. Looks pretty good here. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to mark here, mark the center, and I'm doing these in the blue so that I don't get them mixed up. And then I'm going to go down here at the bottom and I'm going to mark this one. Okay, so I kind of do these minimally. I don't like to mark any more than I have to on my quilt. So there's the second row, and then we're going to go over here and do this side. Okay, so again, I'm going to mark, going to line up with this line up here. Going to line up with this line over here. Okay, and then I can tell if I'm pretty straight over here on the side because you can look at your grid over here. Get it lined up. Okay, I'm going to mark my center. So you can see I don't mark any more than I have to. All right, and then I'm going to go down here, pull the camera back just a little bit so you can see this line here, and I'm going to mark down here so I get ready for the next row. Okay, so there is the second row. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue on down the quilt or the little pillow top here, and I'm going to have one more row. So I'm going to push this up, and then here's my center. Okay, so you can see I don't have a ton of marks on here, but I made these blue so I can tell these are going to be my embroidery marks and these are my quilting marks. So I'm going to line this up here, okay, And I can tell if I'm pretty straight down here because, you know, I've got a little seam right here and that helps me get it lined up. Okay. And I'm going to mark my center like this. Get the little polka dot in the middle. And then I'm going to mark my edges right here on this line here and this line on this side. Like that. Okay. Then we're going to switch over. And I'm going to line up this line over here. You can kind of check if you're straight by looking at your seam right here. Okay, get that lined up. That looks pretty good. And then I'm going to mark the center. And I'm not marking the ends on this one because this is the last marks I have. I only need to hoop this 9 times. So this is going to be the last set of marks I'm going to have on here. Okay, so then we got that. That looks pretty good. Okay, and then I'm going to flip over here and do this other side. So you can see that these clear blue tiles, I know a lot of people told me, well, oh, they just look so complicated, but you know what? They're really easy, and I find this extremely easy to do the quilting, and I really am liking this. This is way easier than doing like having to actually line up your ends and everything, points. I just love this because there is no lining up any end to ends or anything. These are they appear seamless, but they're actually not seamless. They're actually 9 individual designs. So you can see my marks here. So here's the 3rd row, okay? The centers of the 2nd row right across here, and the centers of the 1st row up here, okay? So this is the top. You can't see my arrow very well, but this is the top up here. And then I marked my little top here too, just so I knew that was the top. And then we're ready to quilt. We got it all marked. Again, I marked this with my 6x14 template. If you have only a 6x10 hoop, you'll need to use the 6x10, but then you'll have to hoop it like 3 more times at the bottom. It's still going to be the same width across, but you'll have to hoop it 3 more times at the bottom. Okay, so you'll have 4 rows instead of only 3 because I'm using the 14-inch one. Okay. So now we're ready to quilt. I've got all the markings done. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video for a moment. And I'm going to move over to the machine here so that I can get organized with the hoop and everything. And then we'll come back and we'll start the quilting. Okay, so I'm over here at the machine. And we're going to pick the design. So we used a 6x14 tile. So of course we need a 6x14 design that corresponds with it. So I'm going to go in here to my stick, my USB stick, and I'm going to use one of the clear blue tile files. And I hit my clear blue tiles, and I'm going to go to my embroidery designs PES, and I'm going to choose the spring set. Since this is welcome spring, I thought I would use the spring. Well, in this case, we want to use clear blue tiles. So I'm going to click the clear blue tiles. And the spring set in the actual clear blue tile files is really cute. It's loopy, and then it has this cute little flower on it. So that's the one we're going to use. And we use the 6x14 tile. So this is the design we're going to use. That's a 6x14. I'm going to choose that. And you can see that it's not quite 6 and not quite 14. Okay, but it's close. Okay, so I'm going to hit set, and I'm going to hit embroidery. I have my 9.5x14 snap hoop in my machine. So let me move my machine up, my camera over here. So this is my 9.5x14 snap hoop. I like to quilt with this because, especially with the snowman, because I don't need to use grids. Now, if you're using grids with your standard hoop, you'll need to use a standard hoop so you can use your grid. Otherwise, it'll be very difficult to get these straight with just a snap hoop. So I would highly recommend using or you could use templates if you want to use a template to keep it straight. And that is the other option. If you want to use a snap hoop with your, like, say, 6x10 machine, you can use a template. You could print off the design, and then you put it down on the fabric where it belongs with your marks. and then you can get it lined up. Okay, so that's the other option that you can do. But I like to use my snowman. I know a lot of you have. So I have had a snowman since 2008. So that's actually quite a while ago now. And a lot of you have it, you know, the Luminaires, the Dream Machines, the Quattros, the Stellaires, all of them have a snowman auto centering feature. Even the long, or even the 10 needles do. So I can use this type of centering system with almost all of my machines. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and use that system. We're going to use a snowman. So I've got my little snowman sticker here. Okay, and we're going to start with the top center row. And I'm going to go ahead. Oops, I got to take this pin out first. A second here. And take this pin out, and I'm going to lay my little snowman on my marks so that it's nice and straight on here. Okay. Get that my little snowman right on there, okay, and get it ready to auto center. And then what I like to do is I like to kind of move my quilt or my top or my pillow top in this case kind of to the center of the needle so I know I'm approximately centered. Doesn't have to be exact, of course, but it does help me get it in the hoop better. And then I'm going to slide the top part. You notice I had the bottom part of my hoop already installed in the machine, and I just slid the top of my snap hoop through here. Now we are going to have to take some pins out. What's very important is try not to have any pins under your hoop edges because you will have problems with it slipping on you. So I always take all these pins out. I don't want any pins underneath my top part of my hoop, my magnetic hoop. And this is a dime magnetic snap hoop. And these work really great for quilting. And especially if you have a snowman. So I use these almost exclusively for quilting, and it just is so much easier than trying to hoop it. Now, I have hooped them. I've hooped for years. It's not a big deal to hoop it. What I tell people is, you know, use a soft, fairly thin batting if you have to hoop, and then it can easily be hooped. Okay, so don't be worried if you have to hoop with a smaller machine or whatever. So it works just fine. I've hooped for years when I've done these kind of things, so it doesn't bother me to hoop at all. All right, I just like my snap hoops and I use them for my hoop quilting. All right, so what I'm doing is I'm adjusting to make sure that my hoop is well centered on the base and it's as straight as I can get it, and it looks pretty good. So I think I'm pretty good, and I'm pretty close to the center, which is good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove the rest of these pins. We don't want any pins in there where we might be able to hit one. So I remove everything that is in the way. So I take a lot of pins out all at once usually. Give me a second here. I think I've got one more over here that comes out. All right. So what I decided to do with my quilting is I decided to quilt this with embroidery thread. So you can quilt this with any kind of thread you want. I often quilt it with a cotton, Pima cotton thread. I'm just about out of my favorite white Pima cotton thread though, so I thought, well, we'll just use embroidery thread. So I've got my Brother embroidery thread up here in the needle, okay? And I'm just going to use bobbin thread in the bobbin because I'm not actually, you're not going to see the back of this. This is just going to be the inside of the pillow. So I'm not going to use matching thread on the back. If you're making it into like a table topper or a table runner or a wall hanging, you might want to use matching thread on the back. I'm just going to use my embroidery or bobbin thread, regular old bobbin thread. In fact, I've got a pre-wound in there with my tight purple dot bobbin case. And I've just got regular white Brother embroidery thread in the needle. And I've got, I think, a number 11 needle in there. So that's what I'm planning to do. I figured we'll just have to use embroidery thread more often now because my Pima cotton thread is starting to come to an end. I can no longer get the kind that I really like. So I've just got a little teeny bit left of white, and that's all I have left. So, okay, so I've got this centered fairly close. Looks like it's pretty straight. And let's go ahead and get this centered though for real here with our snowman. So I'm going to tip over here to the screen. And I'm on the embroidery screen. So I brought up my 6x14 spring from the Clear Blue Tiles. And I'm going to hit layout now. It may, if you have an older machine, it may say edit here. And this is where we touch the little snowman. So to get him to center up, I'm just going to hit the little snowman. And it's going to ask me to revert to the original position. Yep, that's fine. We're going to hit OK. And I want it to center on the snowman. So I'm going to hit the center button down here, and I'm just going to hit scan and OK. And that is all there is to it. This little device was ingenious. So it's going to go over here, and it's going to try to find the little snowman in my hoop here. It's thinking. Sometimes it takes him a little bit to find it. And it dims the lights a little bit so that I can find, oh, it found him. There he is. So it found him. It's going to get him centered up so he's nice and straight. And now it says to remove the embroidery position mark. And you can see I was pretty straight. See, it didn't have to tip this much. So it's pretty straight there. And then look, there's my needle right on top of the little center position for my little snowman. Okay, so now I can take this off. Okay, I'm going to take this off. He's all lined up right on my little polka dot that I made in the center. And now I'm ready to quilt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to, whoops, make sure nothing's caught. And I'm going to hit the go button, and away we go. So we're going to quilt this. This is the spring 6x14 design from the Clear Blue Tile files. So it is going to go off the edge just a little bit. I have got that all zigzagged up there, so it's not going to cause a problem if it goes off. And it'll be absolutely fine. And I've learned the zigzagging. I don't know why I didn't think about it earlier, but it works really well. If you have a large item like a big quilt you're doing, you may have to kind of zigzag as you go instead of all at the once. Like these smaller pieces, it's fine just to go all the way around the edge because you won't have any puckering. But you might if you were doing a big quilt. So with those, I just kind of do the areas that I'm working on, and I kind of zigzag and embroider at the same time. So this is our first hooping. This one takes about 7 minutes per hooping. And it's just barely going off the top, and that's just fine. I wanted to make sure I had plenty, for the bottom. I didn't want to have to worry. So you could go off the top more if you wanted to. But I just kind of made it, it's about an 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch off the top. But I don't always quilt with embroidery thread, but like I said, I'm running out of my white Pima cotton, so I wanted to quilt this in white. And I thought it would be neat with the swirls, because see there's swirls in my background fabric too. And then we're going to do 9 hoopings. So this is the first of 9 hoopings. I really like the Clear Blue Tile files. I really like a lot of the designs in there. They have a plain swirl pattern, and then they have this one for spring with a little flower in it. They have one for winter that has snowflakes. So I really like the designs a lot, and I do use these quite often because they fit in with a lot of stuff. So this is going real well. And like I said, we're just going to do one hooping at a time and just keep going until we're done. Quilting with the Clear Blue Tiles is, when I first heard about them, I thought, oh, I don't need those. I use another method, or I use my embroidery machine. But you know what? These are so easy to use. The designs are adorable. And they have a huge selection of designs now. I mean, I don't even know how many there are now. There's so many. And I just really enjoy using them. So it's just very easy, and everything looks so professional. So anyway, it took me a while to warm up to them, but once I started using the clear blue tiles, I just really, really like them, especially for edge to edge quilting like this. Then you can have such a nice look to it. And see how easy this is going to be, and then we can just do the embroidery through the back. So I'm very anxious to get this one done. I've been wanting to do this for a couple of years. I bought the kit maybe 2 years ago, and I've been wanting to do this one, and it's so cute. I love the little rain boots, and the umbrella. So I think this will look really nice. If you want your quilting to show more, by all means use, a colored thread. I like my quilting to show the texture usually, but not like jump out and grab me. So I usually use a fairly matchy thread just because I like it to be more subtle, especially if there's a lot of embroidery on what I'm doing. Now this one has lots of embroidery, so I wanted it to be very subtle in the background, but you can definitely see, as you can see, even though it's white, you can definitely see where I'm quilting. And that's why I like Hobbs 80/20 batting, because it's got just a little bit of loft. It's not super thick, it's very soft, and it works really well for hoops, quilting in the hoop. So it's not too dense, it's not too hard to hoop. I hoop it all the time in hoops. So if you're having to hoop with your grids instead of using a snowman, it's not hard to hoop it. So it's very soft batting. I've tried a lot of different battings. My least favorite is Warm and Natural. It's very, very stiff, and it's very hard to hoop it. So I find the Hobbs works very well. The other one I like is Quilter's Dream, and they have a cotton that's Request, and it's a thinner batting, and so it's very easy to hoop if you're hooping, especially with standard hoops. So if you're using a snap hoop, it can be a little thicker, and it's okay because it works really well. So, and see, it's just going down, see where that blue line was that we marked. So it's just inside of that, and it's doing the same thing everywhere else. It's staying just inside those lines that we made so that you know where your design is going to sew. I just had my machine service, so I'm so excited my bobbin sensor works again. My machine was very dirty. I do a lot of batting, so it gets very dirty inside, fluffy, all the fluff from the batting and everything. So I very excited the other night I was sewing on it, and it's like, oh, the bobbin sensor worked, woohoo, because that's probably the first time in a couple of months that it's worked. So I was really happy. So hopefully that means we won't have to worry. But I am just using bobbin thread. Like I said, you're not going to see the back of it, so I just use regular old bobbin thread in the bobbin. And the embroidery thread in the top. Now I do like Brother embroidery thread better for quilting. It's not quite as shiny. Like Floriani's a little too shiny for me for the quilting. I think I notice it more. Brother's it's sort of shiny, but not terribly shiny. So whatever works for you. You can quilt with whatever you want. Cotton thread, long arm thread. I even use my long arm thread sometimes. I like it too. And so I've just been using, so we're just going to use embroidery thread tonight. That happened to be, I think the other pillow we did like this, it was the Gather Together pillow. I think I used embroidery thread for that too, because it just happened to match my top well. I didn't have any cotton thread that matched really well. And there's our first hooping. Look at theirs. You can really see it in the light, and it gives you just all that beautiful texture with the little flowers on it because it's for spring. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead. I'm just going to pull this up a second. I'm going to get these pins off of here so they won't all magnetize to my hoop. Now we're going to go to one side or the other. It doesn't matter which one. I think I'll just go this way. We'll just go to the left here or to the right. Okay, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to grab my snowman. And actually, you know, I might just go down. It doesn't matter. I think I will go down. I think I'm going to go down and do the rest of the middle ones. So let's just keep going down here. So we're going to go back and go down to the next one in the middle. It doesn't matter. You can go back and forth if you want. I've done it both ways. So I think I am just going to go down though. Let's just go down. This one's kind of long, so we'll just do it all the middle ones first. So there's only 3 hoopings in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and get my snowman on there. Try to get it as straight as possible. Okay, and then I'm going to kind of get it centered roughly. I'm going to center this back up again so that, there we go. Okay, so I'm about centered, and then I'm going to bring my hoop down and hoop it. So this is the second row in the center. So let's just go down and we'll do this whole center row first, and then we'll go do the sides. Sometimes I do the sides and sometimes I do the center. It just depends on what you feel like doing. And I'm a little bit low, so I am going to pull this up just a little bit. The only time you're going to have trouble with this particular design is if you get a little bit too up or down, because it is basically the full width of the, or the full length of the hoop, but the width is much narrower. So, you know, you don't have to worry about so much if you're a little off to the one side or the other, but you do have to kind of worry about, you know, making sure it's fairly close to the center here, lengthwise. Okay. So that feels pretty good. I'm making sure that my hoop is very well lined up. Then your hoops won't slip. So people are always telling me, oh, but my hoop slips. Well, then that usually means that your hoop was not lined up on the edges. So be very careful you get your hoops lined up on the edges while you're quilting especially. Okay, so we're going to take all these pins out. Okay, oops, second here. See if there are any more in here. Did I get them all? I think I got them all. Just be careful of the pins. You don't want any pins in there to get caught. I've even gotten my foot caught on a pin before, and that's like really bad. So make sure you really pay attention to what you're doing. Okay, I'm just making sure everything's nice and lined up. Looks good. I want to make sure that it's pretty taut in the hoop. Okay, so now we're going to go back over here and do the same thing. This is the second hooping in the center row. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit OK, and then again I hit my little snowman. I'm going to tell him to look for the center, and I'm going to hit scan down here. Scan and OK. And then we're going to see if he can find him. It does not take very long. So each hooping is about 7 or 8 minutes. It takes me longer usually to get it hooped than it does to stitch it. And you notice that I did not remove the base of my hoop. I left it in the machine. It's way easier to get everything hooped if you just leave the base in and just move the top or the quilt up and down and then lay the top back on, okay? It says remove the embroidery positioning marker, okay. So here I am. It says 7 minutes. It's about 5,000 stitches. Looks nicely centered here. I'm going to take my sticker off. I'm going to hit OK on my screen and make sure there's no pins. I always take a couple of extra, you know, checks for pins, and away we go for hooping number 2. And we're just doing the second one down in the middle. We're going to do the 3 down the middle first, and then we'll go to one side or the other. And like I said, I have done it like the center and then the sides, and then I go down to the next row. It doesn't matter. When I was doing the Amelie Scott designs, they always did them in columns like this, so I kind of, out of habit, just do them in columns. So that's the way we're going to do this one. So we're going to do the same stitching on this one. It's going to take about 7 minutes, so I'll probably just pause the camera till we're closer to the end, and then we'll do another hooping together. Okay, so we're just about down to the bottom, to the end of hooping number 2 here. And I just wanted to let you know that if you are hooping with your traditional hoops and a grid, I did do a little bit more involved quilting video for the clear blue, or with the clear blue tiles and the grid for the Kimberbell Cuties. So I will go ahead and link that video also. So if you need to see another video on the Clear Blue Tiles, because I did do a little bit more with the grid in that one, just because this one, I wanted to get this one quilted a little more quickly, but I did go a little bit more in depth with the grids with the Kimberbell Cuties. So I will link that video also for the Clear Blue Tile quilting. Okay, so we're going to go ahead. We got the second one done. I'm going to pull my top off. I'm going to pull this down to where the next design is going to start. And second here, I'm going to find my snowman again. Now I like to just kind of center my design back up again. So what I did just now is I just hit, second here, if I can get this turned again, I just hit my my move button, and I just hit the little polka dot down here, which centers it back up to where it was originally. That way you just have, everything is centered and to start from fresh. So I usually do that before I use my snowman each time. Okay, so the second here, I'm going to get this fairly close, and I'm going to put my snowman on. Take a couple of these pins out here so you can see what I'm doing here. So this is the third hooping on the bottom of the middle row, and we're going to go ahead and put our snowman on again. Now this one's going to go off the end, so we may not be able to sew the entire bottom part of it, because I don't know if I have enough fabric down here, so we'll have to kind of watch it when we get down here to see if we have enough. And if we don't, we just don't have to hoop. We don't have to sew it. We can just sew as much as we need for this one, and then we will just fast forward through it. So we'll see. So I'm going to kind of get this lined up here so I'm roughly centered. And as you can see, there it's not going to hoop at the bottom here very well. So we're just going to kind of try to get it fairly straight as best we can. Get everything lined up again. And then, we're just going to have to watch this one, because we don't want it to go off the end, and it looks like it will. So we may just have to kind of watch it as it goes. And looks like I have a pin. Oh, here we go. Pin right here underneath my hoop. So let me get this one out of here. Get it to come apart here. There we go. Okay. So this one we're going to have to watch a little bit. So this one we may just leave the camera on so you can see. Because usually when you do these kind of quilting patterns, you usually have one end that it's going to go off the end. I like to use, technically you can use like a shorter clear blue tile here. So like I could have used maybe like a 6 by 10 or a 6 by, let's see, because it would be 14 and 14 is about 28. And so I might have been able to use maybe a 6 by 10 at the end, or maybe a 6 by 12, just to make it shorter. But I have a tendency to use the same size, and then I just don't sew all of the bottom part. So once I'm down here at the bottom where the batting is, we just won't sew that anymore. We just need the part that's up on the, and so you can use multiple sizes. I just have a tendency to kind of do some math and make it be fairly even with the same design, and then I don't have to switch designs and remember what size is where. So that's one thing that I hardly ever do is use multiple sizes on the same top or quilt. I do that if I'm going to be doing custom quilting, like block by block. But with the edge to edge, I usually kind of find one that's sort of, I can kind of evenly divisible by what I'm doing. So, okay. So let's see here. We got, that's pretty even. I'm going to go ahead over here, and I'm going to click my little snowman. We got our snowman sticker on there. I'm going to hit OK. And I'm going to hit, whoops, can't quite see it, scan at the bottom there. And OK. And it's going to scan and get this third hooping in our middle row. So this will be the last hooping in our middle row. And then we'll go on to the sides. So this goes along pretty quickly, as you can see. I like quilting this way, and it actually is very It's very easy and moves right along. So, okay. And it's actually going to be able to go basically quilt the whole thing, but I often just kind of watch it when I get to the bottom to see what it does size-wise. So it's getting them all lined up. Okay, so see, I must be pretty crooked on this particular one. See how crooked it is? So it says it's out of the area. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to see if I can straighten up a little bit. So it looks like I'm kind of crooked this way. So I'm just going to see if I can kind of straighten it up. It is pretty crooked. So if you can see, it is pretty crooked. So let's just pull this up. And sometimes that happens. You know, you just kind of get off, and I like to do this part, but sometimes, you know, it's easy to get kind of crooked. And what I do is I kind of look at the bottom here, you know, like the bottom of my piece here. I can see if, you know, the bottoms are about the same on my rulers. So it's pretty close. I kind of moved it over a little bit. And these are both about on, well, about 10.5. So it should be a little straighter now. So let's see. My hoop's not quite even yet. There we go. So we'll try it again. Sometimes that happens. Okay, so let's go ahead. And I'm just going to tell it okay. And I'm going to still have it go to the center, and we're going to hit the scan button down here one more time and okay one more time. Let's see if we can got it a little straighter this time. So let's see if we can get it to. I have a little trouble sometimes with the last hooping. Sometimes I get really crooked. I don't know why. I think it's because it's not completely hooped, you know, at the bottom of the hoop sometimes. And it looks like maybe it would actually let me sew the whole thing. So let's see if we got a little less crooked this time. So it's lining it all up. It's still thinking. Oh, I think we did better. So see, looks much better now. It's not near as crooked. I'm going to click OK. It says to return it, and see now everything was a lot straighter. So I was kind of wonky on the hooping. So that shows you got to keep it as even as possible. Okay. So I think we're ready for hooping number 3. So I'm just going to hit go. I know I've got plenty of bobbin. I knew I could do at least one row with my bobbin. So. And now I think that actually there is enough at the bottom that we could just hoop right, you know, we could just keep sewing, but I don't know if I will or not. We'll see. We'll see how it goes when I get down towards the bottom. You can see where the little marks are up there at the top, where the design is going to fit in those little marks that we made, so we know we're going to be okay. But it would sew basically almost down to the end of the fabric, so I may turn it off, and I'll show you how I do that. I kind of like fast forward, you know, through the design, but it might be all right. You don't want it to get caught down here on the open end, so. All right, so I think I'll pause the video for a moment until we get down towards the bottom, and I'll show you what I'll do if I need to do anything down here. Okay, so I've kind of gotten down here at the end, and can you see I'm awful close to the end of my fabric. So I'm just going to cut. It kind of came down off the end here, and I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to cut there. But there's still a little bit of quilting that needs to happen over here on the side. So I just went ahead and cut my thread, and then I'm going to go over here to, to the positive negative needle down here, and I'm just going to go ahead 10 stitches at a time until I'm back up to where my fabric is. So you can kind of see down here where the green arrow is going, and I'm still on the batting. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to wait till I get back up, because there's just a little bit of quilting that has to happen up on the edge here. And I'm just hitting 10 at a time because I'm pretty close to the edge of my batting. It probably would just barely work, but I don't want to take the chance. So I'm just kind of going forward until I get to my fabric again. So it's still down here at the bottom. Okay. Okay, so I'm getting pretty close to my fabric, and it's going to go up on the fabric now. So let me show you. It's going to go up on the fabric up in here now and do a little bit around this area. And I think that's where it's going to sew now. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK on my machine over here, and I'm just going to go ahead and let it sew now. Tie it off a little bit. It's going to go up onto the fabric now. So I just fast forwarded a little bit. You know, when that kind of stuff happens, just fast forward a little bit until it gets back up on your fabric, so that you don't have to take the chance. I think it would have just barely made it, but I'm just going to let it. I didn't want to take the chance of coming off the fabric. So, but it does need to come back up into the top up here a little bit. And it kind of ends up on this area, so it should be okay now for the rest of it. And there might be another little spot over here that we'll stop it for, but I just want to make sure that it's going to go up and over, and I think the flower is going to be up on the fabric. Yep. So that may be about it for the fabric. After we get this little flower done, I think, then it's going to do the bottom. So now it's just going to be on the, we'll just check it to make sure. So I'm going to go ahead and cut the thread again. And I think that was it for the fabric. So we'll just kind of look here. So we'll just go fast forward, hit the fast forward button down here, positive, negative needle. And I'm just going to look at it, and it's not up on the fabric at all. It's just down on the batting. And I think it's just, yeah, it's going to go down here. See, it would just barely eke by, but we're just going to not take a chance. And I think it ends about right. We're getting close to the end here. So I think we're about to the end, 50, 60. Yep, so I'll just go to the end of it. And I think that's the end of the design. So yeah, so what I did is I just fast forwarded till it got to the end, and then I got the little part up here where I needed to go up and finish that little section right up here on the side, but now it's all done. So that finished up my third design, the one on the bottom. Give me a second here. Didn't quite, oh, there we go. So I can get this pulled up. So now we're ready to do the next row. So I just went to the end, and as you can see, what I did, I just didn't sew part of this part down here because it was going to go off my fabric. See that my fabric's just a little shorter than my batting on the ends because it was with the fabric, and it was just a little shy on the ends. So I think this just worked out fine. I just fast forwarded, made sure it sewed on my fabric, and then we're done with that row. Okay, so here is row 1, the center row. So now we're going to go up and start working on the top again. And we're going to do the outside row. I think we'll do on the right. It doesn't matter. You can do either the right or the left. So we're going to go back up here to the top. I'm going to go ahead and put my snowman on. Make sure I get it nicely pushed down. I'm going to take some pins out. And this is going to be hooping number 4 already. So we're really just moving along. So I'm going to do this hooping. Let's get this one in the hoop, and then I'll probably go ahead and turn the camera off for a little bit, and I'll do another hooping. And then you can watch me do the bottom one again, because we had to kind of fast forward again a little bit. So just a second here. So this ended at the bottom. So what I'm going to do, you can see that my hoop's way at the top. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to hit the, it finished it. So I'm going to hit the 0 button to take me back to the beginning of the pattern, because it finished the pattern, but it was like 1 stitch away. So that way I know that I'm pretty centered again, and I am going to check my bobbin now. Yeah, I think I've got enough for another hooping. And then we're going to get this lined up. So I've got my needle kind of centered again. Gonna get this lined up with my snowman. Get my hoop down here, maybe. Whoops, second here, I got a pin stuck. Get this pin out of the way here too. The pins like to, if they're loose, they stick right to the hoop. So, all right, so I'm going to pull this up and get it hooped. Let's see here, I've got some fabric that's trying to escape me up there. And get it as straight as possible. Okay. And when I was doing the math, trying to figure out how to quilt this, it really does quilt. It was easier to quilt it from the long end, the long ways instead of the short way, because of you'd have to do 2 hoopings lengthwise, and it would be more hoopings because none of our hoops are long enough, because this was 17 inches wide. So with the 6-inch, I was just trying to, do the math and have it come out as evenly as possible and as few hoopings. So, when you do the 6-inch hooping, 6 goes into 18 3 times, and so it's only 17, so that leaves just a little bit on each side, So it worked out pretty evenly, and then you only had to hoop it 3 times down. So I thought that worked out the best, and it was the least hoopings. 6 by 10 hoop, again, you'd have to do one more, let's say you'd have to do one more row. You have to do 4 hoopings down, because that would be 40 inches. All right, so I'm kind of off here in the center. I'm trying to get it pretty lined up, but sometimes these side rows are a little tough because they're, you don't have a lot to hoop into on the sides. I try to leave as much as possible, but you sometimes are still just a little shortish. And so it's kind of hard sometimes to get it exactly even. But my trick is to try to get it as straight as possible. All right, so this is a little off, but I think, well, it's probably going to be a little too off. I need to come up. Side to side, I'm not as worried as I am length, because the length is pretty close to your hoop size. So if it has to move it this way, that's usually fine. Okay, so I am going to have to move it a little bit. I think it'll be okay, though, because it's only 6 inches wide. So I think we'll be fine. Not very crooked up here yet. Okay, that looks better. So let's see if that'll center up okay for us. I think I've got the hoop centered now. There we go. Okay, so let's give this a whirl here. We got our little snowman on there. Okay, I'm going to go back to the snowman. I'm going to hit OK, and I'm going to scan to the center, and then I'm going to hit the scan button. It's just down below where you can see, and OK. And let's see if it'll line it up for us. So we're on the right-hand row, the top one. So this is hooping number 4. Okay, well, it's thinking about it here. Let's see how we did. And the sides are particularly where we need the zigzagging, because the top and the bottom are not as bad, but it's the sides that really are tough to keep it from catching the foot. So this is where I can actually like breathe and not have to sit here like on pins and needles the whole time trying to see if it's going to work without pulling out everything out of the hoop. All right, looks like did it find it? It found it, so it just kind of scooted it over a little bit because I was a little off. I was about ½ inch off or so. So I think we're going to be good. Looks nice and straight. I got it in there pretty straight. I just got it scooched over to the sides. So, all right. So we're ready for hooping number 4. So you can see it's all lined up there. And, I probably better check my bobbin just to make sure. I think I'm going to be okay, though. Let's see. Oh, yeah. I got enough for one more hooping. I always check it just to make sure. I usually check it when I have the top out, though. But we're good for another hooping. I do have a pre-wound, so they last a little longer. All right, make sure everything's nice and even on the sides. And we're ready for hooping number 4. So again, it's going to go just barely off the top. And oops, got a little tail there, don't I? Have to get that. I don't think I'm going to stop that and get that out of there before it gets sewn into it, and I can't find it. Second here. There we go. Right, so it goes off, you know, about a quarter of an inch or so. And off it goes. So hooping number 4. So I'll let you watch it for a minute, and then I'll turn the camera off, and I may go ahead and do hooping number 5 also, and then we'll do hooping 6 together. So that's another one of those ones at the bottom. So I think I'll just do a couple of hoopings, and then I'll be back to do hooping number 6 with you. Okay, so we're about here to the end of hooping number 5. So I did 4 and 5 off camera. I wanted you to see that it does extend, as you can see, just a hair over on the sides. It's about an inch, or not quite an inch maybe, because remember the design is 6 inches, so we're, you know, it was pretty closely divisible between the 17, but this is only 17 instead of 18. So you can see that it goes off the edge just a little bit. All right, so we're ready for hooping number 6, and that's going to be another one of those that we're going to have to kind of watch because we're going to be way down here at the bottom. And I'll get it started with the snowman, and then I will probably pause for a moment while I'm until it gets towards the bottom where we need to do the little fast forward again. So, and if I would have started a little bit higher on the top, it wouldn't have been quite so close to the bottom, but it doesn't matter. So I often have to do this when I do edge to edge. So it just depends on the size of your item that you're working on. Okay, so let's go ahead and get this kind of centered-ish. I'm going to go ahead over here. I'm actually going to go ahead over here and hit move and center it again because it was a little bit off to the right. So this gives me a little chance to get it more centered. Then it's easier for me to center if I have my needle kind of in the right spot. Oops, second here, I'm stuck. So I'm trying to get that, you know, little snowman kind of right under my needle. All right, well, boy, did I ever get crooked on that one. Holy cow. Okay, let's try this again here. Let's get it straightened out a little bit. When you get down here at the bottom, it's always a little hard because then you don't have too much to clamp onto. So I try to get it as straight as I can. And we are over to the side just a little, but I think it'll be okay. It's not that much. I'm just making sure I'm pretty straight here. Looks pretty straight. And again, we'll have to watch this bottom because we won't want it to go off the bottom. All right. So this is hooping number 6. Look at this, we're getting close. So I'm going to go ahead, let's go look at the camera over at the screen here. I'll hit OK. Then we're going to hit our little snowman, and let's see if he can find him. I'm going to hit scan and OK. Let's see how we do. I'm about to knock everything off the back of my cabinet here, so I better go rescue it. It's about to go off on the floor. Let's see if we can get this to recognize. And give me just a minute. Oh, there, it already went. I had some things sitting back there and this is pretty long when it gets down here at the bottom. So, oh, looks like it might have found it. Hopefully it'll be okay. I think I got it in there pretty straight, so it should be okay. Looks pretty good. See what it does here. Still thinking. Okay, so see, it says it extends. So see, I didn't do as well as I thought, so we're going to do a little bit of manipulation here and see if I can get this straightened out a little bit more. Okay, so I think we finally got it here. I had to go out and stand behind the machine, make sure I had it straight, and it looks like it's straight now. I ran the scan with the snowman, and it says to remove the positioning mark. So as you can see, it looks pretty straight here now. I don't know why it was being so contrary, but you know, sometimes that just happens. So if you have that happen, what I do often too is I will often just turn the machine off, turn it back on again, and then I stand behind the machine and make sure that it looks straight in the hoop, and it does. So then, and then it usually will just line right up, and that time it did. So anyway, I apologize for the how long it took me to get that one, but you know, sometimes it just happens. So I'm going to hit OK over here, and I'm ready for, this is going to be hooping number 6. So we're getting there. Oops, a second here, I got a little tail sticking out, so I'm going to go ahead and get that before I sew it into my top here. And I'll let it sew for a few minutes, and then I will go ahead and stop the camera for just a moment while it is getting towards the bottom, and then you'll know, I'll show you how to do the fast forwarding again to the bottom. And again, sorry it took me a little bit to get that one hooped, but you know, the hardest ones to hoop are the bottom corners, because you don't have a whole lot at the bottom, and you don't have a whole lot at the side. So that's why I like to try to leave at least 3 inches all the way around, because that way I have a little something that I can work with. And this one has a little bit more on the long sides than on the ends. But again, it's still caused me a little bit of a problem. So that's the hardest. I think it's the hardest ones to hoop are the two bottom, the bottom left and the bottom right. The middle one was fine, but it was just being contrary. And you can see it goes about 1 inch or so out off the edge. So, okay. So I'll just turn the camera off for a minute while this sews, and then I'll show you how to work with the bottom again like we did before. Okay, so here we are on hooping number 6. We're getting down here towards the bottom, and we're going to let it run kind of down off the bottom, and then we'll stop and we'll kind of fast forward until we get back up to the fabric again. It's just as happy as a clam now. I don't know why it was so contrary wanting to line up, but just as happy as can be now. Sometimes that happens. Like I said, I just got up and I really looked at it from the back. So sometimes I just need to do that because I can't see. Okay, so I'm going to turn this off. Okay, I'm going to cut my thread because this is going to get off my batting down here. All right, so we're going to go over here and we'll watch it sew a little bit over here. And I'm going to go ahead and hit my negative positive needle, and we're just going to go ahead about 10 stitches at a time until I get back up on the and I can see my little mark down here. So I'm just watching it. So it's way down here at the bottom yet, not back up to the fabric. I'm just using 10 at a time. So that seems to work the best for me. You can go more if you want, if you know it's a lot, but I just want to make sure that I don't miss something. So, because it kind of goes back up on the fabric here shortly. So I'm going to kind of go back up. It's doing the little flower down there, and then it's going to go back up. And so about right in here is where I let it sew for a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and let it sew for a little bit. You can watch it sew. So here we are. It's sewing off on the batting over here. And it's going to go up onto the fabric again. And then it's going to do the little curl and come back over this way. And it's going to do this little corner over here. And then we're going to be back down on the batting. So we'll just let it do the corner. Has a little flower to do kind of over here. And then it'll kind of come over this direction. And I think it's okay there yet. But there's going to be a little bit of that flower, yeah, up on the edge of the fabric, and then we'll be done. So I'll just let it do the little flower, and then I think that'll be it. All right. And then it's going to start heading down again. I think we don't need to sew that. So that's how I do these, is I like to just kind of, you know, let it sew up on the fabric and then let it go down, stop it, and then fast forward until I'm ready for the end of it. I'm just going to hit the cut button, And there is hooping number 6. We did it. That one was cantankerous, wasn't it? So I have problems too. So don't feel bad if you get one that just doesn't want to quilt, doesn't want to line up for you. And the other thing I did, just so you know, is I did go ahead and just turn off the machine and turn it back on. And sometimes it just lines everything back up again. And that's what I did. And I also looked from the back and made sure I had it straight. So that's my 2 tricks with that, is to try to, it's really hard though, because you can see it's very hard to tell if it's straight or not, because there's nothing very close to the edge of my hoop. So it's always hard on the bottom corners. Okay, so now I'm going to go up and we're going to be ready to do hooping number 7, 8, and 9. So if you give me a moment, I'm going to get this ready to go up to the top left-hand corner. Okay, so I've got this in the hoop. Let's see if we have better luck on this side. It looks pretty straight, and I've got the hoop in there, but again, we're kind of on the same boat when on this side, but then now the batting is going to be over here. It does hoop at the top though, which really does help. So I've got it hooped all the way around. I'm just making sure that my hoop is really well centered here. Feels pretty good. So let's give this one a whirl and see what happens here. This is going to be hooping number 7. I'll probably do 7 and 8, and then I'll come back on and we'll do 9 together. Again, we'll have to do the little fast forwarding through for 9. So I'll do a couple of hoopings and I'll be back with the last hooping. Okay, so I just finished up hooping number 8. We're going to be ready for the last hooping here. So with any luck at all, let's see if Jan can get it in the hoop straight. So we're going to push this up and get this bottom corner. So this one's going to be a little tough. This design is like right at 14 inches long. I mean, it's like, and it's just actually, believe it or not, it's actually a hair over 14 that these hoops take, but you gotta be pretty darn close to the center. Otherwise, there just isn't enough room. So, and it has to be pretty straight since this is so long and skinny. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead, and again, I'm gonna do the same thing. I like to come over here to move center, so just so I know everything's centered to begin with, because then I can use my needle to help me. And I've done that every time. Okay, so here's where I'm going to put my snowman for this last one. And that looks pretty straight from the other ones here, so we should be pretty good. So let's see if I think I've got all the pins out. It's always nice to get all the pins out. All right, so I'm going to put my snowman on, make sure it's adhered well. And then I'm going to lift this up and we're going to get this as straight as I can get it. So, whoops, second here, I got pins stuck to my hoop again. Didn't get all my pins put away. Okay, so let's see how we're doing here. I think it's cockeyed this way, so let's bring it this way a little bit. It's always hard to tell. So I like to get it as straight as I can and then get the hoop down and centered. Let's see if we can do this the first try. I did well the last time, so let's see if we can get this one. So, but it's good if you see me struggle too, because see, everybody has problems with this. And again, this design is like super close to the size of the hoop, so you do have to be pretty straight. Okay, so let's see here. So I'm going to use my book here, and I'm going to go along my blue mark. This has been helping me. I've been using my book, and my blue mark, I'm on the 0 here, and I'm just a little above the 0 here. So I think I need to come down. Let's see if we can get that straightened out just a little bit, because it has to be pretty close, because this is really, really close to the hoop size. All right, let's see what happens here. So I'm kind of using my 0 line here with my hoop. That's closer. So let's see. what happens. Sometimes, like I said, I've been getting up and actually looking at it from the back because it's so long and skinny. Okay. Well, let's see what happens. You think I can hit it? I don't know. You guys are watching, so I probably can't. Let's see. I got the last one, but let's see if this one works. But it has to be pretty straight. So it's going to go looking for it. Yeah, I was surprised at how long this is. It's like 13.95 inches, so it's like nearly the entire length of the hoop, so it's very close. So if you're off of the 0 too far, you're really it's gonna be too long. And then if it's not straight, it's also gonna be, it's so close that if you're crooked, it's gonna, kick one of the corners out. So I think it's gonna kick a corner out on me here. Maybe not. Yep, see how it kicked a corner out? So see, it's tipped in this way, so it needs to come back this way. So we'll give her another whirl here. So let's take. Okay, so what I did is I laid this up on my cutting table, and can you see I drew a little line right here to my 0 line, and then my other line over here, this is from the middle hooping. I put it on my 0 line, and I lined them up, and I got it lined up because I was just enough off. Like I said, if you look at this, I mean, this is like right at 14. It is just the complete length, and if it's just tipped a little bit, it is not going to go into the hoop. So I really had to work at these, didn't I? So just be aware, if you use this particular design, it is a very tight squeeze in a 9x14 hoop. Some of these that are like that are not quite as bad, like I know I've done a bunch of these bench pillows, and I haven't had as much trouble, but it must just be this design. It must be very close, and that's what it is. It's just so close. So here is our 9th hooping. Oh my gosh, we did it, guys. So see, I have problems too, and so just keep working at it. And so then what I did is see my line I drew here. I just took my blue pen and I lined these up so I could see better on my hoop where I was hooping, and that really helped. Over on the side over here, just because of I think it's because of the batting over on the side. It was very hard to see, how close I was. But it is going to look gorgeous when it's done. So I'm going to let it sew for a little bit. This is always a good lesson when I struggle with something too, because I know if I struggle with it, other people do too, and I can give you a few little pointers if I can. And that seemed to work for me. It's just draw the line over here to help me with the edge. And then if you give me a moment, I'll shut the camera off for just a moment. We'll come down here to the bottom, and then I will do the fast forward thing to get us through the batting area, and we'll be done with our hoopings. But yeah, this one's very close, everybody. So you really have to be accurate with your this particular design, I should say, is very close to the hoop size. So you have, or the length, I should say. It's not the width is fine. It's the length that's really close. And so you really got to be accurate and get it centered in the hoop up and down. So I'll be back when we get ready to do the fast forward. Okay, so we're getting down here towards the bottom of hooping number 9. It's going to move around. I guess it's going to move around the edges over here a little bit more before it works down towards the bottom. But boy, this one's been a stickler for wanting to be really centered in the hoop. So this is going to be so pretty. I really like the design though. I was really happy I chose this one, but man, I was not expecting it to be this contrary. for the hooping. And you can see it's off about an inch or so on the left as well. So anybody that chooses this design like I did, you may have to work for it a little bit. But you know what? It's worth it. It's always good to have a challenge, isn't it? Challenges keep us going and learning new things. So I learned a couple new tricks. I may have to use some lines to help me line it up a little bit with my hoop. Now see, if it would be easier almost if you were lining it up with your grid in many ways. The grids, just so you know, are slightly off though, because they're having you center it, but you're going to have to move everything over slightly because everything's centered up and down pretty well with the grids, but it's always over to the right a little bit. You usually have to move everything to the left a little bit. So be aware of that when you're using your grids, and also use the needle drop. Make sure you know exactly where your center is, and use your needle drop to help you. Okay, so here's our spot where we're going to stop. I'm going to hit the cutter. Okay, so we're getting ready for this last little bit here. I'm going to hit the cutter, and then I'm going to go down to my negative positive needle. Get flipped over just a little bit more. And then I'm just going to go ahead 10 stitches at a time until we get back up to my fabric. And you can see where it's at down here. The little green cross helps you know where you're at on the little flower there. And the leaf. Okay, and then it's going to go up the side. I'm not quite there yet. We're getting closer to the fabric, so I think it's going to go do this little leaf down, or the little flower on the corner. Now it's going to go up to my fabric. So I think I'm going to go about right there, and I'm going to start it again. Okay, we'll watch it real close, because it's going to go up to the fabric, and it's going to do this little bit right in here. So we kind of got to watch it close. And we're almost done. Okay, because you can go down on the batting a little bit. It'll be just fine. But we don't want to go down too far on this one. So we're going to kind of put my finger up here on the button. You can go down that far and then back up, because it's going to go do a little bit on the edge of this fabric right there, and then I think it's going to be about done. It's going to do that little flower, and I think that might be it. It's going to go up. I think that's it. Yep. I think that's it. So I think it's going to go down here and do this little bit down here, and it comes around and then comes back over this way. So we've got it. All right. Well, we had to work for that one tonight, didn't we? So this, I love the design though. So I'm going to pull this out so you can see it. Now the one thing I am going to do is I am going to take my blue marks off very carefully with my iron, because this is a heat away pen. So I am going to take the blue marks off just so that it's not so confusing when I go to do the embroidery in the next video. But just be careful. Don't take your red marks off. These we need to keep on. I thought I might carefully take my blue ones off just to make it a little easier to see what I was doing. And you can leave them all on if you're sure you're going to be okay. But I thought, I'll just take my blue ones off. Okay, but just be careful of the red ones. We want to leave those on. So there is, isn't that beautiful? I love that design. It's going to be so pretty when it's done. I like the little swirls and the flowers, and then it's got little leaves on it too. There's the little leaves. So there is our welcome spring. It's all quilted, and now the next step is going to be embroidery. So the next video will be the embroidery. I'm going to start out with the scan and cut for a little bit, because I'm going to show you how to cut the lettering out. So I'm going to cut the lettering out with my scan and cut, and then we will go on to the embroidery. We're going to do, I think the first embroidery is going to be welcome. The second one's going to be the umbrella. The third one's going to be spring. The fourth one up here is going to be the little flower stems. And then the fifth one is going to be the rain boots. Okay. So thank you so much for joining me. Sorry I had some difficulties, but you have to, sometimes you just have to see those too, because then you know you're not alone if you have a difficulty with this. Quilting is really fun with the clear blue tiles. Again, this particular design was like super duper close to the edges of the hoop, or the top and the bottom, I should say. So it had to be very, very close to the center in order, and very straight for it to go in. So we did it, and we got all 9 hoopings done. It looks great. And I will see you in the next video, and we will start doing our embroidery. Thanks, everybody.